We'll pull what the Arbe or the
Orlando.
Arba, therefore the any Jew anywhere, you know the Arba finished the Barad. The Egyptians, the poor Egyptians were allowed in Egyptian fields to climb up the trees and what with the Barad, because the Barad crushed all the trees, so they were hoping to get a bonanza on what was left on the top of the trees. You ain't getting anything out of those trees.
They ate the tree trunk.
No, the fruit on the tree. Any fruit left over, yeah, any greenery. And then the Medrash says something amazing. It says, number one, any tree which the Arba ate up never replaced itself. It never replenished the following year. Brings the Pasuk in Yoel. Not only did it eat the Zeroim and the Ilonos, it ate their clothes and any tachshis in which they had. And even if they hid them in basements or whatever, the locusts got in and ate the whole lot. Ainly the Shabbasodos in the fields, Shabbabatim in the houses, innermost rooms, nothing could escape. Not only that, they blocked up all the waterways because there's so many. They sunlight around. Just because they're edible. Till Messiris. Isha Arba Echad B'chol Gevul Mitzrayim. Not one Arba remained. The locust came back, cleared off. About some records of plagues of locusts, and he said in the ancient Near East times, locusts could destroy an entire in a matter of minutes. Okay, the locusts finished off any vegetation that remained after the plague of Barad. Later on in Tanakh, Kosh Baruch Hu describes the locusts as my mighty army, Cheli Agoda, my mighty army. Kosh Baruch Hu doesn't need soldiers and tanks and missiles. Just a couple trillion locusts will do the trick. Now, most locusts are between 2 and 4 inches long. They've got 4 wings and 2 props, which they sort of stand on before they take off.
Do they bite? Yeah.
They can bite, yes, they can. Okay, now I mentioned last week the Makkah of the locusts when they land somewhere they lay eggs. They dig it into the ground and they lay on average 70 eggs, which means long after your locusts which on ground level have disappeared, you'll have a while later 70 times worse than you had originally. At the moment in Australia, it's a major problem. They started having plagues of locusts in Australia. They managed to spritz them with pesticides and whatever the ground level, but then the farmers went back and dug up the ground and they found eggs in the ground, which means it's all going to come back. And they've got to catch them before they can grow enough to fly away. It takes about 6 weeks for a locust to fully develop. They've got to catch them. Once they're airborne, you can't stop them. So he said about
you have to wait for them to die.
Someone here talks in 1926-27 there was a massive swarm of locusts in Africa, which worked its way around the whole of Africa. It took 14 years. They even fell into your shirt collar from the walls above and crawled up onto one's person. Whenever touched, or especially when finding them caught within one's clothes, they exuded from their mouth a dark fluid, an irritant to the skin. It spoiled your clothes in the most disgusting manner. Imagine the feeling with a dozen or 2 such creatures over an inch long with saw-like legs and rough bodies making a racecourse of your back. Okay, right. Okay, Parry even describes it. It shows they actually felt they were all going to die from this. that's the way Paro described to remove it. Now he brings here very interesting. He said again with the theme that every Makkah is destroying. So they had an avodah zarah of the grain. There was an avodah zarah who brought fertility out from the Nile banks, which was brought silt from the banks, which would help the crops. There was another one. There was 2 or 3 of grain. So again, all the local avodah zarahs which they used to worship at the time of the harvest season, they were all silenced and eradicated. They had a wonderful definition. It's called the theological demolition of Mitzrayim, because God was completely wiping them all out. Okay, along came the 9th plague. Now Choshech was very, very interesting. The Chazal tell us, so we wrote rather scary about Choshech. The part of the reason for Choshech was to wipe out 4/5 of Klal Yisrael. And part of the cheshbon was that if the Mitzrayim would see the Yidden dying, they would say, oh, as much as we got affected, they got affected. So under cover of darkness, 4 out of every 5 adult males or adults disappeared. And they were able to bury them. So the question was, who were these 4/5? Exactly, who were they? And this is very, very fascinating. The Chasam Sofer says 2 explanations. One is, he said, when the Jews were having 6 babies at a time, he said they weren't supposed to be having 6 at a time. More neshamas were sent down just simply to counteract the Gezerah Para. Para tried to minimize them, because Baruch Hu said, ha ha ha, we'll see. And he maximized it, but those neshamas shouldn't really have come into the world. So those neshamas died. They're the 4/5 who died in Choshech. But then he says something more scary. Ramodcha. He says, think about this Yetzer Hara they would have had. Every year would have been beaten sometime or another by an Emitzri. I suppose pretty much you don't forget the Mitzri taskmaster, the Mitzri policeman who did that to you. So he said, in the days of looking for the gold and silver, but that means going into the houses of the Mitzri. He said that Moshe Rabbeinu warned them, don't you dare go into a Mitzri who hit you and get your own back now. Very easy to be very geschmack. Take a cricket bat, or take a baseball bat, go into his house. They were warned. Is the location, but nothing more than that. Says the Chasam Sofer, 4/5 couldn't hold out. 4/5 gave them back what they had got, and they were the Yidden who died in Choshech. Quite incredible Chasam Sofer. But there's another explanation. Listen to this medrash. There's a kliyaka about it as well. It says, not every Jew in Egypt was a slave. Baruch Hu doesn't show favoritism. There were many Jews in Klal Yisrael. Shahaya lehem patroinim min hamitzriyim. They had sorora, they had officers of high position, and they were in with the Egyptians. Probably the Egyptians got them to do the dirty work, like the capos in the concentration camps. They was or the heads of the ghettos. They were wealthy and they had prestige. Listen to this. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu. If I kill them in public, what happened to us happened to them. Therefore he did it in the 3. No one would know where they'd gone to. Now, listen to this kliyaka in Parshas Vayigash. Parshas Vayigash ends off that as the Yidden started developing in Mitzrayim, they took hold of the properties, the property market. Literally, it says, Vayeshev Yisrael be'eretz Mitzrayim be'eretz Goshen. They lived in Mitzrayim in Goshen. Vayeochzu ba. They took inheritance of it. Literally, they took hold of it. Vayifru vayir b'ma'od. What does it mean? Vayeochzu ba. And achuzah means a possession in the land. Says the Kliyaka. But Ashmas b'nei Yisrael hu medaber is speaking to the guilt of Klal Yisrael. Ki HaKadosh Baruch Hu gaz aleim ki foreign land, not take over the land. V'heima and citizens supposed to be Gerim, but they were land. Haposuk ma'ashimam al yeshiva zu shebikshu achuzah be'eretz lo lahem. They wanted to take hold of a land which was not. Logu ba'aretz bonu. We only come here as strangers and go back at the first opportunity. Melame shebitchila originally la yodu lishtakeh shama. They didn't go to settle there. Ela logur, just to sojourn there. Va'achshav chazru midivreim. Galus gets very comfortable very quickly, especially when you start doing well. The kol kach nishtaku shama. They got so sunk in Mitzrayim. Listen to these words. Ad shelei rotzu lot says they didn't want to leave. They were so wealthy and so attached to the land, they didn't want to leave. Listen to this. That's why I mentioned it 3 or 4 times. Avodim in the Parabim Mitzrayim, biyad chazak. Hashem had to slap us out. Not yod chazak necessarily against the Mitzrayim. That's also true. But for us, listen to this. Lot says those who didn't want to died in the 3 days of Afela. Now, I don't mean to upset anyone's sensitivities here, but not being a wealthy landowner in Chutz La'aretz. So, on the one hand, okay, I might be perpetually skinned, right? But think about it, yeah. When Mashiach comes, who's going to find it easier to get on the plane and leave Chutz La'aretz behind? Think about it. It's a very interesting concept, because this is what they were asked to do in Mitzrayim: leave everything behind, everything which you could schlep with, but everything else we're leaving behind. Now, can you imagine somebody who had a lot of schorah to leave behind? They want to leave. So what's going to happen? We all think Mashiach's going to come. We're going to hear a shofar, and Eliyahu is going to come and tell us, right, what's going to happen the next 3 days before he comes, and everything. We're all going to quickly race and fill our bags and run and queue up in Terminal 1, Manchester Airport, for the next Ryanair flight. Are we really going to do that? We think in our dreams we think that's how it's going to go. Well, it didn't work like that in Mitzrayim. And who's to say? Who's to say? Who will hesitate? Why did Lot hesitate to leave Sodom? He was told that the whole place is going to be turned upside down, destroyed. Vayismamo, he delayed. Why? He was fabulously wealthy. He was a judge in Sodom. Didn't want to leave it behind. There's Israel, but it would seem to be it's not quite as easy as we think. And go to a new existence in Eretz Yisrael. It would seem to be it's not as easy as we think it was. A 4/5 tax doesn't hold out. Now, how do you know it's 4/5? Because it says in Bishalach, it's very beautiful about this. It says Vachamushim olu b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim. They came out now. What does chamushim mean? Some say it means armed, but Chazal say chamushim means 1/5. 1/5. The Targum Yonis says Vachamushim means they came out with 5 sets of children. Why would each family have come out with 5 sets of children? Makes a lot of sense now, doesn't it? 4/5 of the adult population had died. So there's four sets of, for every one set of parents with a family, there was 4 sets of kids. So Vachamushim, every family came out. That's Pshat. It says, Zacharti lo chesed nu'raich. I remember the chesed you did in your youth when you came out of Israel. What chesed? His family fostered 4 sets of orphan kids. That was 4 sets of kids. Very beautiful. Very, very. They 4/5 died. By the way, if anyone's what went on in Mitzrayim, it's a very big agad. It's a very, very big one, but it's Gadi Pollack. There's very graphically with all midrashim. Very, very, very well done. It says what the Mitzrayim would do. You want to hear what they would do? They would, if they wanted a party at night time, they would bring a Jew, make him stand there in the corner, sit in the corner with a candle on his head. And if he moved, so therefore, because they use Jews as like the base of a light, of a candle, the benefit they'd had from the Yidden had to be negated. Now it says there were 7 days of Choshech. But if you look at the Pasuk, you'll only find 6. 3 they couldn't see, and then another 3 they couldn't move. So where was the 7th one? Oh no, this was light for the Yidden, and it says Choshech, the 7th day of Choshech were applied or kicked in at the Yam Suf. Now, question is, what exactly was the makkah of Choshech? So he brings here something very interesting, because there's a big debate. Somebody showed how to say it. Because Baruch Hu used what can naturally occur, but very unnaturally, to show he's the boss of nature. Yeah. So in bigger quantities or massive amounts at different funny times, things kicked in. Now you do get desert sandstorms. Now apparently, I always thought Chamsin in Eretz Yisrael just means the heat. If it's extremely, extremely hot. What does Chamsin mean in Yisrael? It's actually a sandstorm. A Chamsin is a sandstorm. So he brings here something very interesting. He said, besides it came without a warning, he said, someone to say it's a Chamsin, common in Egypt in March time, which is interesting. He said, the minute particles of sand transported by the Chamsin, coupled with the extreme heat, makes these desert storms most uncomfortable. He said he actually lived through one. He said it's very hard to look into. But he says here, he said, very interesting. He said a typical Chamsin lasts for 3 days. And the Torah says it went 3 days and 3 days. That is not unheard of, for it to last for 3 days. So he's not sure exactly what it is. So the Ramban says a very interesting pshat. He tells us what pshat is. He says, Ki lo hoya choshech hazeh afisas or hashemesh sheba shemisham v'hoya k'may layla. He said normal darkness is just lack of light. So the sun's rays are not shining directly on you. So to us it goes dark and then you get nighttime. So it's not real darkness per se, it's just lack of light. He says, but here, avahoya choshech afela, koloma, aid of ma'oid, a very thick cloud, shiyorad min hashamayim. And that's when Moshe Rabbeinu was told to stretch his hand out towards the Shemayim, lahorid misham, to bring down from there, chashecha gedola nefeles alem, a great darkness which fell upon them. V'hoisa mechabe kol ner, every light, every candle went out. It wasn't possible to light anything in this with this cloud. Now, he quotes Hori Choshech. He said, you find this phenomenon in the mountains of darkness, wherever they are. He said, sunlight or even light can't penetrate. No fire can be lit there. Now, okay. Yeah, and he quotes the Ibn Ezra, who said he went through a very thick fog. Some say it's when he came to England. It was covered in fog, like a smog here. And he said he got a feeling of what Choshech was like. Apparently you can get a fog so thick, you actually can't see a couple of inches in front of you. It's that Ad Kedei Kach. So he says it was clearly a thick cloud. I heard it described like a big black jelly. Imagine a big black jelly descending where you can't move. It got so thick that they couldn't even move. Now he says this something very interesting. This knocked out the last Avodah Zarah to go is the Avodah Zarah of the sun. So here, where nothing penetrated and the Ad Kedei Kach couldn't even move, that knocked out any emunah in the Avodah Zarah of the sun. And then he quotes, I think it was Josephus, I think. Yeah. Yeah, he said, a thick darkness without the least light spread itself over the Egyptians, whereby their sight was obstructed and their breathing hindered by the thickness of the air. They died miserably. And under a terror, lest they should be swallowed up by the dark cloud, they actually thought they were all going to suffocate. It's a bit like waterboarding. How's waterboarding work? What's the torture of waterboarding? The guy thinks he's going to drown. They put like a plastic sheet over him, something, and they put water there, and he feels he's drowning in water. So he said, here as well, they all thought they were going to suffocate to death. As it got thicker and thicker and thicker, and breathing got more difficult, the attacker all thought that was the end. That was it. So Kosh Baruch Hu must have taken it to the limit where they could just about breathe a bit and survive through it, but they didn't know that. So as it got thicker and thicker, the impact got even more. So he says, yeah, here we are. Right, from the perspective of the Mitzrayim, the absence of sunlight had profound meaning. They believed in the Avodah Zarah of the sun, and they believed sunlight meant a bracha on Mitzrayim, so any interruption in the cycle of the sun spelled disaster. He said, the passage seems to be telling us the targeting of the Avodah Zarah of the sun, probably the most venerated deity in Egypt. That was the biggest Avodah Zarah of the lot. That was the one they all worshipped. He said, he brings loads of names here, different sort of like first cousins of the sun, all different Avodah Zarahs. He said, now this is very interesting. Well, the name Paroi is Pei, how do we spell it? Pei Reish Ayin Hey. Reish Ayin is the name of the Avodah Zarah of the sun. And Pei, it seems to me means like the son, as in child, of the Avodah Zarah of the sun. Paro was believed to be the god prince of the sun god. He said that's where you get all these names. Now, have you noticed Shifra and Puah have got 3 of the letters of Paro in it? Shifra's got Pei Reish Hey, and Puah's got Pei Ayin Hey. These were Shem Avodah Zarahs connected to Paro. These are all names of Avodah Zarah. He says, Potiphar's real name was Potiphera. It's all got these names in it again, because that was what he was connected to Paro, and therefore he had these names which were very close to the name of Paro. So he said, the plague of Choshech certainly challenged that Avodah Zarah, which was also a form of Egyptian one. He said, and Egyptian kings were referred to as the sons of Ra, Reish Ayin. So he said, it was viewed as the biggest blessing and the most powerful Avodah Zarah of the land of Egypt, and therefore this would have knocked it all out. He brings here, now, very interesting. Yosef married Osnas, the daughter of Potiphera, who was called Kohen Oin, the priest of Oin. Where was Oin? Very interesting. Where's this place Oin? So he says, Osnas and Potiphera are recognizable Egyptian names, meaning respectively, she belongs to, Osnas means she belongs to Nas, one of Avodah Zarah, and Potiphera means he whom Ra has given. And where was the place where they worship? Which city did they worship the sun? This place called Oin. So Potiphera, Kohen Oin, he was the minister, the vicar, or whoever it was, of this place called Oin, where they all worshipped the sun. And that's why I have the name Potiphera. It's all connected to this Avodah Zarah. So he says, very interestingly, the Greeks called the city Heliopolis, which in Greek just basically means the city of the sun. Even the Greeks understood, even hundreds of years later, it was still known as a place where that was the Avodah Zarah they worshipped. Then he brings here, there was another Avodah Zarah of light, there was another, the Avodah Zarah of the moon didn't help, that was another one. Now this is very interesting. He said Memphis was actually a place in Egypt. Today, it's people of Tennessee, yes, in America, isn't it? It seems to be a bit of a shame of Avodah Zarah. Yeah. All right. So he goes through all these Avodah Zarahs, which to do with the sun and the moon. They were all knocked out. There's Avodah Zarah of sunlight, the Avodah Zarah of air. And he brings here like this: the 9th plague brought terror, as all the Avodah Zarahs of the sky were brought to nothing. However, Paro still refused to let the Yidden leave. So he said, so therefore, Kosh Baruch Hu has one more knockout punch. And Makos Bechoros, he knocked out completely every single Avodah Zarah, melted, every single Avodah Zarah rotted. It was once and for all. Paro learned his lesson. If he was still clinging to anything, anyone was still clinging to anything, that was all dispelled with Makos Bechoros. So he brings here in the Medrash one more thing about the Klal Yisrael go looking for the money. So now the Egyptians weren't stupid. They must have heard noises in the house of somebody checking the door, the drawers opening and closing, and various things. So he said they were aware the Yidden had come in and not stolen anything. So on the night of Yetzias Mitzrayim, or the night before, when the Yidden said, can we borrow all this stuff, can we have some stuff, they were very forthcoming because they were convinced they would get it back. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. So it was a bit of A, to know where it was, and B, to encourage the Mitzrayim to give it to them. But listen to this. Very interesting. Even in Nazi Germany, not every German was a Nazi. You hear stories about, people risking their lives, people, even in the concentration camps, occasionally someone met a guard who had a bit of Rachmanos. It's a very funny thing, even in the midst of you hear stories in Russia, in the middle of the forest, there was Cossacks, whatever, and one just happened to be Jewish. You hear these stories, I'm all hear these stories. It seems to be in Mitzrayim as well, not every Mitzri was Meshabbat the Yidden. It was by orders of Paro. They were slaves to Paro. Paro had his military or his police who carried out all his orders and all the taskmasters. But it doesn't seem to be because the night he sees Mitzrayim, it says like this: "V'yishalu ish me'esre'ehu." People should borrow, request from his friend, and it's referring to the Mitzrayim. So either they did have, some of them did have friends amongst the Mitzrayim. Not every Mitzrayim was nasty, or it could be now right at the end.
Out of control.
Right at the end, he says, "V'Hashem nosan eschein ha'om be'enei Mitzrayim." Hashem put the favour of the Mitzrayim. So now the Mitzrayim got friendly. Now it's a very interesting thing. Very interesting thing. All the Yidden who went through Nebuch the Holocaust, those who survived, did they harbour a big hate against the Goyim, or did they get on with their lives? Or did they just let it pull them down for the rest of their life? How did they react to it?
It's different.
There must be an ability to push it to the back of the mind, because how would they have continued life? Of course they had nightmares and everything.
Huh?
10 minutes. Sit down 10.
So, I don't know, some people said they'll never ever go back to Germany, they'll never go back to Europe. So some people had to switch off from it.
I know somebody who
cope
went
with-
back to Germany.
Yeah?
To the camps, like as a tour guide.
As a tour guide, okay, some people did that, okay. But it's very, very interesting, how did the... They're from Shemayim, probably. And therefore, you don't find anyone in the Torah was supposed to hate the Mitzrayim because of what they did to us. Yeah, the Torah says for 3 generations they can't marry in, but at the end of the day, initially they were kind to us. So you don't find a mitzvah hate. No, Amalek, there's a mitzvah to wipe out Amalek. There's no mitzvah to wipe out the Mitzrayim. So why is that? Why is there no mitzvah to wipe them out? The answer is they were the shliach. They got their punishment. They got their just with the Makos. I think they got their einish.
Yeah,
And then once that einish is done, so they've received what they deserved, and that's it. So the Torah doesn't say you can't have a ger from Mitzrayim because of what they did to us. Ammon and Moav, Ammon and Moav was they're rejected, but Mitzrayim, it seems to be, as a people, not such a, what they did was terrible, so they got their punishment. But as a nation, it's not a nation which the Torah says you can't have a ger from Mitzrayim. So it's very interesting. You need to find sources for it. I'm sure there's plenty they talk about it. Okay, just want to finish off with one or two halachas. Relevant this year is, I don't know what you're doing here, because normally Shabbos morning is quite relaxed and quite chilled in timing, but this year you've got it done very early on Shabbos HaGadol, because you've got to have at least one meal before, I think it's 9:07, I think it is, the earlier time, 10:07.
When does Pesach start?
Pesach is Sunday, but you got to get, it's first night Seder, yeah. So some people, you can't eat chametz. Even if it's Shalosh you have in the afternoon with fruit and cake, or not cake, or whatever, other shakos. But one meal you've certainly got to have in the morning, which means a bit of chametz left, and you've got to be finished it by the very latest 10:07. The later time is 10:07. So I don't know how you're going to arrange it, but you're going to have to daven Shacharis pretty early, or eat sort of Shabbos before Shacharis.
I think Hekel Hashem have got Shacharis at 10:30.
Are you serious?
I don't know. I think we need to do that.
Finish our comments the night before.
No, but you need Shabbos morning,
was
Mati. At least one meal, one roll Shabbos morning.
So you can eat before Shacharis.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to do that.
You have to work something out. It's some people have 2 meals. They
And then after that,
they make it is have a roll, bench, go for a walk 5 minutes, come back, have another roll for Shalosh Shudas. Even though it's a bit before Chatzos and everything, but
I don't agree with the whole thing. If you can't eat chametz from Shkia, let's say, or from Nach, no, the whole Erev Pesach you should be allowed to eat chametz.
no, in that Torah you can't eat from Chatzos.
Why? No.
Because it's time
Pesach
for,
only starts at night.
no, because you can't have chametz in the house when you bring your Korban Pesach.
Yeah, we don't have Korban Pesach.
No, but the Issa is still there. There's man at Issa. The Torah always delayed it. So Chazal brought it back 2 hours.
Yeah, but why are you bringing it back now?
No, because don't forget, man Chazal. No, we've got clocks and watches and calendars, but
Back in the day,
they had to watch the sun. So a cloudy day, how would they know? 2 hours before was you won't make a mistake.
So why haven't they moved the times then? Because nowadays we've got phones and calendars.
What? No, you don't change. You don't change your thing because we do as we're capitalism.
I think I was saying to you then.
Yeah, That's number one. Now another thing, very important thing is if you're a bechor, you do your bechor.
No.
Right, okay. This year times bechor will be on the Thursday, not Friday thing, and because you never fast on Friday, you never push it back to Friday. And also, if you're a parent, you might not be a bechor, but you might have a little bechor who the parent has to fast on their behalf. So make sure someone's got a siyum going on the Thursday. 'Cause that's the way everyone gets out of it with a siyum. So make sure it's arranged. Yeah, everyone gets out of it. Yeah, right. And don't believe it or not, there are people who have forgotten to, or didn't turn up or whatever. You're stuck. So a sim can be any small Gemara, Makos or Horus, the 13th daf, whatever, or Seder Mishnayis is also qualifies as a sim. Finishes right, Moed. But someone needs to arrange a sim, or there's going to be some very hungry people walking about on the Thursday before Pesach. Now, where does it come from to fast? The Chazon Sofer says an amazing thing. I saw it last night. He said, Hashem said He's going to wipe out every bechor. So I didn't say goyish bechor, every bechor. That's why the bechor needed a special protection. Which Hashem said, now you owe me even more than the rest of the clans, so you owe me one. He said the Yidden on that day of Eretz, he said every bechor was fasting. They should be saved that night, midnight. And if it was a child who was a bechor, the parents fasted for the child. He said that's what happened then. The very from that the bechor is still fast, and the parents will do it on behalf of the child till the child's bar mitzvah. If the child is on the mitzvah, like it was done then, the father was terrified. What will happen to his son? Because it doesn't say I will only kill out the bechorim of the mitzvah. It says kol bechor. It's like a warrant out for every bechor, and without the blood on the doorpost and the schus of the Korban Pesach and the Milah, they would have copped it as well. So therefore, this minig is a very, very ancient minig from the very first Pesach in history. Another thing is, don't forget to tell your chametz. And if you're going abroad, right, okay, yeah, right, all right, I see, okay. We had here was a Hershey. Hershey said one year Yitzhak forgot to do it, and he said he put out all his whiskey next to the bin. And he was wondering what was going to happen to it. He said, last night Pesach, he got nicked. He said, so someone finally found it and took it. Right? So make sure, most Rabbanim who got in the shuls or MH will have it in the office or the base, wherever. It's easy to get hold of, but don't forget, make sure you don't forget.
Are you allowed to sell it to like a guy that you're friendly with?
Sure, as long as you know what you do.
Have to be through the...
No, you can do it yourself. It's even better actually. It's more real in a way. Because you know you're really selling it. You just have to know what you're doing, that's all.
So if I sell it, I can leave it in my house, right?
Well, you got to lock it away,
right.
Seal the cupboard, lock the cupboard, seal the cupboard, tell the guy where it is. He gives you a deposit.
You have to tell the guy where it is.
Yeah.
You go to the rabbi, you don't tell him where it is.
No, you write on it.
Down,
you should really write on it where in the kitchen. Let's say the lower cupboard's in the kitchen or the back room or somewhere. The guy actually rents the room off you, and because that way it's his now. It's completely his rishus, right?
I've always wondered if the guy actually can turn up.
He can. He can. He has to pay you. He has to pay you the balance. Yeah. How it works is he gives you a deposit. Yeah, there's a 10 quid. He has a choice now. He can come around and pick it up, and if he doesn't pay you by Motzi Pesach, he'll return the deposit. I'll sell it back to you. But if he can turn up, take all your whiskey and pay for it, and very good. It'll be very good. If he did it, so some shuls, Rabbi also told me, in South Africa, his mechutzah Rabbi Zalzer, and he said in Switzerland as well, they tell the guy, randomly choose a couple of houses and turn up on Pesach and say, can I have the chop? I don't know what they do. What do they do? It must have happened.
It did when I lived there. There was one story once.
But the guy died on Pesach.
No, not died.
He came round to the house. There you are. It's not a spiel, right? And even if the guy is the old Joe from down Cheetham Hill Road who's done it year in year out, and he comes in and thinks it's all a joke, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you're thinking, right? As long as you do the kinyan, but every Rom they do it properly. That's it. So what the guy's thinking is irrelevant. Doesn't matter.
But what if they got the Schmerel who doesn't have any money to pay for anything he takes? He just goes and ransacks it.
He can't
takes all the money.
They can't stay. He's got to pay.
He's getting a bargain. He's getting a bargain.
He's going to
be scared of the rabbi.
Charging full price.
I think he's going to be scared of the rabbi. He's going to run away.
They're usually very good about it. We're sensible, and they do. So some people do a general one. MH will have one for all the shoes under their umbrella. Goes to a going press which does it himself personally. I think Rabbi also does it personally. So some, wherever it is. But if you're at home, so remember to do your bedroom. Yeah. Although you'd be surprised where food gets. But remember, you're not looking for dust and you're not looking for crumbs. Really, you eat if you came across it on Pesach. Yeah. So. strict about it. They turn the house upside down and everything to get rid of it. Remember, the rule Pesach, you might forget.
When do you do bigger stuff?
You just pretend it's the 14th. Keep time daytime. You can't do it on Friday because you still need your chametz for Shabbos. So on Shabbos day, after you finished, you say the Kol Chamira.
You don't do a fire at all this year?
Well, you do it on the Friday. Well, whatever you want to burn, you do it on the Friday. But you're going to leave a few rolls for Shabbos. You have to this year. So that's what you do.
How do you say the bracha of Kol Chamira then?
Yeah. You have to do it on Shabbos day. When you finish. That's right. Yeah. So okay, one of the ancient halacha I came across was depending on what size kos you use. Now you got to drink the whole kos.
Very machmir.
Yeah, depending how. Hello. So it's the shit of the Ramban. The Ramban holds that it's 4 kosos, literally.
Yeah, cup
Literally
that,
kosos. So you know the famous joke about the guy going through the customs in America. So they stopped him and said, you can't bring in 4 cases duty free, you can have 2 bottles. So he said, no, it's for religious needs. So he said, what, 4 cases? And so the guy in the phone, he says to the guy, is it true you need 4 cases on Seder night? So the guy said, yeah, you need 4 cases. 4 cases. 4 cases. So they let him through on religious grounds, right? So yeah, if you do it right, but akaponim, very important to remember, yeah, rove kos and leaning as well. Now leaning is not just a little tibble to your left, yeah, it should be very. Well, you have to get. It's better if you get a seat with arms. It makes it easier, or a swivel chair. It's got to be. If you notice, as you lean to the left, you got to lean enough that all of a sudden you feel your hips uncomfortable and you move them out. That is the position of leaning. That's the beginning of leaning. Then you can go flat out if you're comfortable with it. But it's got to be where you as you do it, you try it. As you lean to your left, all of a sudden your hips feel. Hold on, sorry.
The idea is to be comfortable.
Yeah. So that's it. That when
Roman times when you sat with your great.
I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they did it. Now, interestingly, some people do it. They take and get a proper couch.
Like the
But very interesting. I saw last night the Biskarov. He said you should have a little table next to you. Because you got to recline by the table. That's how the Romans did it. They had a little table next to them. So Ben Chorin didn't just sit on a couch in the middle of a room with nothing next to him. He had his wine and he was drinking away from his little table. So if you do it, make sure it's relatively near the table. But Ramosha Stone points out, he said that's how it goes. As you lean, you automatically, or you reach a point where it's not comfortable, and you. Yeah, well, yeah, So it's very, very important because it's ma'akev, I say, but it's a big problem if you drink without leaning. What to do because you got a problem with looking like you're having more than 4 cups. So you got to be careful with it. Same with matzah as well. You got to lean for matzah. And there's a debate whether during the Haggadah whether you should lean or not. So whichever one you do, you're okay. But the leaning is very, very important. Now, very interesting. I saw last night something very interesting. We say nowadays, really, women are noshim chashuvos, so they should lean, but they rely on the opinion of the Ravya, who says nowadays women don't lean. You don't need to. It's not a sign of freedom anymore to lean nowadays. So, but the son of the Chasam Sofer, the Chasam Sofer says, he said, my mother, who was Rabbi Kiva Eger's daughter, she used to lean, and my father used to get her chair ready so she could lean on saying that. So it seems to be, you may not have seen it, but if they want to, certainly, and if you can accommodate it, it's a cautious thing for them as well to do. And I'll tell you another thing, a very, very important thing. If you're married, this is very good. If you're married or you're leading the Seder, is that it's very hard for family and young kids to concentrate for a long time. So you do them a favour if you keep the Seder moving. You get to the mitzvahs early for kids especially. They want to get involved, eat the matzah, eat the maror, and then watch the faces. They eat a shtick cream. He goes, yeah, well, the fun of Seder night. But to schlep it out, it's very hard on the women and the kids. So if you're leading the Seder, keep it flowing to keep everybody involved because everyone's got to enjoy it. It's very important everyone enjoys it. Okay, everybody, so we'll stop there. Tomorrow night we'll do Makos B'chayros, and then later on in the week, Bli Neder, we'll concentrate a bit more on the halachas of Pesach. A little bit more, Bli Neder.
Guys, there's a Fabrengen here at 9 o'clock, which is now. Just waiting.